Hello. So, welcome to this episode of Creating a Buzz About Health with me, Paula Carnell. And I have got such an exciting guest with me today. I've got Brent Knudsen, who is the founder of PureWave. Now, you may not have heard about PureWave, and I too had not until very recently when I heard Brent being interviewed on another podcast. And this has just excited me so much because obviously I really care very deeply about my own health, but more than anything, it's about the bees. I feel that their health and well-being is just crucial for all of our health and well-being. And Brent has so much exciting stuff to share with you today. So without further ado, Brent, welcome.
Oh, geez, Paul, it's such an honor to be here, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak with you and your audience too. So
Oh,
thank you for that.
it's a pleasure. So, I suspect that many people listening to this will not have a clue who you are, what you do, or what PureWave is. So, would you like to give a bit of an introduction about why I might have got you on here?
Well, well, I think our connection, obviously, with you is to do with what we're doing with bees. So
Mm.
that's certainly a pleasure to talk to you about that, especially yourself and your involvement. But I'll tell a little bit. My background wasn't anything to do with bees or anything to do with sacred geometry or quantum physics. I'm from the FenTech world, so my background is in mathematics of configuring algorithms, and in this case, it was for in the '90s for debit and credit in Canada. And my partners and I built a company called Tangerine in Canada, which is fairly well-known banking that we built up in those days for debit and credit for moving money around. But where this connection happened, and I'm getting quickly to it, is I noticed when I was doing my math configurations through those technologies that it bumped and bordered on what I called sacred geometry. So I started to really get interested in sacred geometry because of that, and because math is the language that I was dealing with, and geometry and math is a language. And so at that point, I really became fascinated in the '90s with sacred geometry, and I took it on as a big hobby of mine because I was still in the business world. But around 2008, our company was being it was a public company, was being bought out through the financial crisis of 2008, and it freed me up to then go to where I had lots of time and energy to pursue what I was passionate about, which was sacred geometry. And that's where the whole thing started. I spent the next 6 years doing nothing but research. And what I was particularly interested in was I kept seeing these particular geometric forms everywhere. I mean, we're talking in churches, all religions, all intricate of our society. And I started drilling down further and further and found out at a cellular level, not just for us, but insects and everything, that we all start out as a one-celled object organism. And then in mitosis, the first thing we did was form this geometry. So it was like a blueprint. And we'll show this to your audience as we go on. But this was the biggest breakthrough for me, because then I realized that communication had a lot to do with health, and it had a lot to do with building immune systems and things like that, which I wasn't expecting. I was looking at that history and religious aspect, that it had some language that was going to communicate, what they were doing, and that what it led to was quantum physics itself and the atom structure and everything. So it was mind blowing for me. And then the issue became, okay, now that I started working with frequency, how do I hold certain frequencies? Or when I get a hold of a frequency that operates and really affects us, how do I maintain it? And that's when I started to get into very powerful magnets. And I realized that back in history, way back, they would have worked with crystals, magnets, things like that. They didn't work with what we do with today. So I started to use this, basically because the Earth magnets have that right frequency from the and what happened was it was brilliant. It allowed me, once I could get the shape right, I had to get the magnets, the shape right, and we'll go into this. Then what happened was it would hold that frequency, it would lock it, and then affect everything at a cellular level. And so that I'm speeding ahead. That took 5 or 6 years, and I built a lab that blocked out everything that I could test in, all built on the same principles. And but I elected. I elected in 2015 when I heard about the tremendous bee loss, and I wasn't aware of it until then. That I would go that route as opposed to with people. I was doing a lot of testing with people and getting great results, but I elected not to go that way because I didn't want to bump into, the more successful I'd get, the more heat I would get, problems. And people are complex. So I thought, well, what a better thing to do is go into the bees and let's see what it's doing for them, because there's no placebo. It's just, it's perfect. And that's how it started. And then the results started coming. And then I was able to go to skeptical beekeepers, particularly commercial ones, and I was able to get them convinced to go in. And then, of course, we did a 3-year study, and all this is behind us now, that it really, really affects. But it turned out it's not just the bees, it affects plants, it affects us, because what it does is it builds up your cells, which are just like little batteries, your cells. Mm-hmm. So for an example, you and I sitting here right now, if we were exposed to radiation, we would feel nothing. It would feel like nothing's happening. But 2 weeks from now, we'd really start to feel it, and our cells were breaking down because of it, and forming cancerous form. Well, this is the opposite. The more you're exposed to it, the higher you go, the stronger it goes. And how we know this is our cells are like little batteries. But the only cancer that you never hear about, and even if they do touch on it, is heart cancer. There's no such thing as heart. That's your highest electrical field. That's why. No matter what, everybody gets all other forms of cancer, but not heart cancer. So that's the tip. That shows you the area you have to go. You get your rest of your body in that frequency, same as that height, and look what happens, right? So it's immunity is that we're talking. So I'll kind of stop there and then let you guide as to where you want to go into this.
Wow. Now that's a lot. There's a lot to unpack there. I want to go back to the sacred geometry and frequency. Now, I've always been fascinated in both, and I'm working a lot with the bees. So I'm obviously working with frequencies and also with healing. So would you like to, or are you able to explain in a bit more detail about how the sacred geometry relates to frequency? So if somebody draws the pattern, or if you lay out a certain pattern in sacred geometry, how does that relate to frequency? Does the formation of a shape create a frequency?
Oh, that's a great leading question, because that's perfectly what happens in everything, in not just here, but in our solar system universe. We are all made of exactly the same things, the same building blocks, the atom structures. The only thing that separates everything is the frequency that it vibrates at. That's what separates everything. So now that we know that when we make a statement that we're all made of the same stuff, and we are that, and not just living, but non-living, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So once we know that on a quantum visit, what the shape, what the geometry does is determine the different frequencies that develop what's going on. So it's like, so if there's millions of things or billions of things that are transforming, that we see everywhere in life, the reason that they're being able to do that is they're morphing through the geometry. The geometry is the structure. So when you saw those ancient symbols, and they're always in churches, and they're usually constructed when they're in stained glass as well, for highly elevating it, what those structures are doing is manipulating those frequencies into a result, or into a consciousness, would be a better way to put it. But it affects us so dramatically, because at a cellular level, they pick up on the frequency that feeds them, or the ones that don't. So good frequencies, bad frequencies. And that goes for food or your environment that we're all in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's that part. But when we start to really look, and everybody will start to see this, and we'll show a video on it too. What I noticed is that have you ever had a situation where you become aware of something, whatever is something you want to buy or whatever, and all of a sudden you see it everywhere? It's like, oh,
Oh,
there it is, or there it is. That's called the reticular activator. It's opened in you where now you see it everywhere. It was always there, but you didn't see it because you weren't, you were in another space. Once you open this door, you'll find that it's in every part of our life. It's in corporate symbols. It's in all religion. It's on law enforcement. It also is involved in all medical. You're looking at when you start looking at hexagrams and all that. That's all part of it. That's all part of it. It's all part. Well, you see it everywhere, and this is why it's important. And then we're getting into what we talk the flower of life, or the star tetrahedron, which is another big part of which is what people recognize as the Star of David, the six-pointed star. And the reason it's six-pointed versus a pentagram or a pentagon is the pentagon, the five represents the five senses, right? So it's an earthly physical, but the sixth is to the sixth sense or to the third eye. So it's taking you outside of the realm. That's why in the States, they have law enforcement, they have the five-pointed star, and then they have the six-pointed star. But law enforcement is the five-pointed star because what is it doing? It's literally enforcing man-made law. That's man-made law, right? That's the law of man. But when you go to the sixth, that's higher law. That's outside of man-made law. So this is where all this stuff comes from. And once you discern it from what they were communicating in the past, you realize it's profound to us, and it has. So I met incredible people, and you will too over your life, that really understand sacred geometry and have a real grasp of it. They're real specialists. That's not the path I wanted to go to, where I was going around and talking to people about being a specialist with sacred geometry. That's not my nature. My nature was I wanted to know what that stuff could do. What those geometric, if I manipulate them and hold them, what can they do for us? What can they do for the bees? That was a little harder because I had to take it from concept into reality, right?
mm,
So it took me a long time to play around with the magnets, and you'll see what they look like. They have to be cut in petals to then form the geometry, right? So just like in a flower, the petals form the geometry. Well, that's what I had to do. And by trial and error, it's like when you have a recipe for a cake, you can't be off. It has to be right. Once it's right, the effect happens, or the result. And that's what started to happen. And then that's what I pursued, and then pursued it. And then, and then you've got to go out into nature and just make it, see what happens. Like, you have to stop talking about it and see what we're doing. And that's what happened to me in 215 and the previous, the next 5 years. And that's when I decided, with much reservation, I decided in 221, because a lot of friends and family convinced me to take it back out into the world. And I started 4RBees. That's when I started the company 4RBees. But when I say reluctant is because I was having, Paula, I was having so much fun, dropped out doing all my research and not being involved with the public or anybody, just, in general, that I was just having such a good time. I thought, I got lost in it, and I thought, well, do I really want to go back out? Because I knew what that would be subject to. Anytime you do that, you've got to get revved up and ready. So I did, and then we went out and started doing this, and the public has been absolutely phenomenal on supporting us. From little kids, what I knew I had to do it. And Lisa knows I tell this story. There was a little girl that I was talking to about what we were going to do. We were talking with some school kids, and she'd be maybe 6 years old. And she said, so what are you talking about? What are you doing? And I told her about the bees. And within, I'd say 30 seconds, she stopped me and lectured me for 5 minutes on how important that was. A 6-year-old, right? And I knew that from a 6-year-old to a 90-year-old, it was in that consciousness, because the bees just have that kind of effect on us. They're in our soul. right? Is what I found
Absolutely.
out. So,
Yeah.
I know you know that, but and so then I went, okay, this is, and the public has responded. They respond to this. So what happens is when they support us, like through honey and the PureWave Cell, which is really beneficial to them, health wise. We'll talk about that. Those proceeds go back out because we provide all of that, all the cells and seeds and queens to the beekeepers at no charge. So that's why we were able to go out and do that. We just want to support it financially and technically and technology wise to build up what the problems they're having. So what problems are they having? They're having, same as us, environmental problems, what they're subject to. So we can talk that, whether that be pesticides, 5G, chemtrails, you can go on and go on and go on. Food sources, a big one. So they're subject to what we're subject to. So we have to treat them the same way. We go in and we get their immune system built up. That's all we're doing. We're not fixing them or healing, just like we don't do with humans. But what we do is allow you to withstand what you're up against, right? What's coming at you. So that's typical of any immune system. When people with high immune systems are just not subject to the same problems that people that have weakened immune systems. So that's basically, very quickly how I got into doing what I'm doing, where the company 4RBees is involved in speaking to you. But I always found it's a lot easier, like talking. Here we are talking and I'm enjoying this. But we have some really great videos that show when we're talking sacred geometry as to what, and I made this so that I could show people what I discovered, what I saw, and then how it related to cells or mitosis.
That would be brilliant. Now, we've got Lisa, who I know our viewers or listeners won't be able to see or hear, but we can see her backstage there. And she's going to do some amazing technical wizardry and actually share this little video that you've put together about sacred geometry, because you're right, it's so important that we understand it and then understand the power of it.
Great.
Now, do you know, I'm going to... Nope, I don't know.
To understand the principles of this technology, we need to first examine where we come from, where we are now, and where we are going. Our ancient ancestors possessed a profound knowledge that we are only coming to understand today. Throughout human history, in every time period, in every culture, in every major religion, one geometric shape has continuously been present throughout the ages: the star tetrahedron. This perfectly aligned six-pointed star has been discovered in almost every religious culture in human history. It's been found in the architecture and decor of ancient Christian churches, Jewish synagogues, and Islamic mosques. It has also been found in ancient civilizations and cultures throughout Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas. However, with all its references in ancient texts and artwork, the star tetrahedron was not often used as an exclusive symbol to represent any one religion or culture. Historically, the star tetrahedron was regarded more as a divine diagram with the potential to connect us to a higher power. A broader example of the star tetrahedron can be found in another symbol revered by the ancients: the flower of life. The star tetrahedron's six-pointed geometric shape is very prominent within the flower of life pattern, where its shape multiplies infinitely within it. These shapes were revered by the ancients as the symbols of the creation of energy and frequency, the blueprint of all matter. But in reality, these ancient symbols are actually two-dimensional representations of a three-dimensional object, the atom. The atom is one of the most important scientific discoveries in quantum physics. It is regarded by science as the building block of all physical matter. energy, and frequency. The atom contains a nucleus, which is made up of protons and neutrons. Electrons, through electromagnetic force, orbit the nucleus. This combination of geometry, magnetism, and motion creates frequency. Everything that exists in the universe, from solid objects to living organisms, contains this exact atomic material. The core denominator that makes one object different from another object is frequency. Frequency is the catalytic force that dictates the design of all the structures of matter in the universe. The atomic symbol is an exact representation of these principles, and so was the star tetrahedron in ancient times. In fact, looking a little closer around the nucleus of the atomic symbol, we see a familiar shape, the star tetrahedron. This is no coincidence. And it's no coincidence that the star tetrahedron's geometric pattern aligns perfectly with the electromagnetic structure of the atom. The ancients knew what science has only discovered within the last 100 years, that everything that exists in the universe, including all of us, is merely a combination of energy, frequency, and vibration, and that we are all intrinsically connected by it. The star tetrahedron and the flower of life are the geometric blueprints of this profound architecture. Today, the star tetrahedron and the flower of life pattern can actually be seen on a microscopic level through mitosis, the process of cell division and the creation of life. Humans begin as a single cell. That cell then multiplies into 2 cells, and these 2 cells then multiply into 4 cells, in a multiplication pattern that continues trillions of times over until we are formed. When observed through a microscope, we can see that this growth pattern is literally mirrored by the pattern of the star tetrahedron and the flower of life symbols, giving us further evidence that these geometric patterns represent the creative power of all matter. Furthermore, within each one of us, there are over 100 trillion cells, and within each cell, there are over 100 trillion atoms, all releasing powerful quantum energy. The astronomical amount of atoms in the body, all simultaneously releasing these quantum frequencies throughout every cell, creates a massive accumulated frequency that surrounds and flows throughout the body. This vibrational force is known universally as the torus field, and it surrounds everything in nature, as well as our entire planet. The Earth's torus field can actually be observed in the aurora borealis. The torus energy within our bodies is designed to symphonize with nature and the Earth's torus field. Frequency connects us to nature and the Earth in ways we could never have imagined. Our torus field is responsible for maintaining our health from a cellular level. 10 to 20 billion cells die every day, and an equal amount of cells are replaced by the body. The difference between people who rebuild healthy cells versus unhealthy cells is determined by what we are exposed to within our environment. If we are exposed to the harmonious energy fields of the Earth and nature, our bodies will continuously rebuild healthy cells. But if we are exposed to unnatural, non-harmonious frequencies, our bodies will rebuild unhealthy cells. Harmonious frequencies are the keystones of our health and well-being, and the electromagnetic force of the star tetrahedron and the flower of life pattern creates these harmonious frequencies that we now know are essential for life.
Oh, that is just brilliant. And I just love how the bees embody it. And going back to where you had your 6-year-old come up and say, oh, you know, how important the bees are. I really strongly believe that the bees are heavenly beings. They're the connection between the earth and the heavens. And the reason so many people are called and interested and have this natural affinity for bees is because on that vibrational frequency, we're receiving the information that the bees are physically showing us what happens if you're in an environment with the wrong frequencies, with the wrong vibrations. And, you know, humans, you know, we could have all these amazing texts, we could have all these amazing statues, we can have all these great teachers, but most of us learn either from experience or from seeing. You know, seeing is believing. And seeing the bees dying all around us does raise the question, thank goodness, Why are they dying? But then the next question is, oh, hang on a minute, we're in the same environment. So this is what's so brilliant about what you're doing and your work. Gosh, so we know now that you have to have that healthy frequency, and you've used sacred geometry. You've got these magnets that are in petal forms. So you were arranging these magnets into different patterns in your wonderful structure, which I've seen, little footage of, that you'd built in your garden, a sort of I suppose a cavity, a healing space that was protected from all possible negative energies. And so was that your playground to then find what the results were of different magnets and different formations?
Yes, well, that is exactly that. What I realized when I started going down this path of geometry in construction, like, because that's in churches. And if you've ever noticed, in our all the ancient ruins, or what we looked like years ago, the buildings were way more sophisticated. We basically live in boxes now, right? That was way more sophisticated. Well, so I knew that it wasn't just a geodesic dome, it was a geodesic sphere. I had to complete it. And all of the geometric 5 platonic solids were built into it. So it's like a vibrating, it's a vibrating building in itself, but it had no windows, or it had no connection to the outside. It was shut out, everything from, to Wi-Fi and to bad EMFs and so forth, so that it was a really clean environment inside. And that's I knew I needed that, and I did the ley lines, had the DC currents coming up, and I went through a whole thing on my property that I could even do it. I wasn't sure. I didn't know if I had to move or what was going on. And there was a whole story in that itself. But building that building was one of the more difficult things that I ever did, because there was no blueprint for it. I was tripping around trying to figure out in my mind what I wanted to do and what that was. So there was over 100 people involved in building that, because it has light frequencies inside, and it has sound. It has inverted crystal pyramids in the floor, building the star tetrahedron in the building. But and I thought, well, here it kind of reminded me of, I don't know if you ever saw the movie of Close Encounters of a Third Kind, right? Okay,
Yeah.
when he was out in the back and he was building mud and all that, and everybody thought he was crazy. Well, that's what my neighbors thought. They thought I was crazy. Like, what's this guy doing? And because I didn't know what it was, what it was going to end up. Was I going to get the results I was looking for? And of course, by the grace, I did. It was beyond my expectations by following that. But so back to the PureWave Cell, which is over here. What that is all about is not multiple free. It was about locking down through the flower of life what that frequency does to us, like we saw in the video. And I had to use very powerful neodymium magnets, because they don't lose their magnetism for 20 years. So that stays the same for 20 years, where weaker magnets will lose it, thereby lose the bond. Once I got those figured out, and then got the shape figured out, it produces a frequency 12 inches around it, and then it dissipates. So it has to stay close to the body or close to the bees. So the bees are in contact with it all the time. We'll show that they're coming over it and things. So when they just go do their daily thing like us, they're in contact with it all the time, coming and going, and and they love it. And I'll tell you why they love it. It's because it's not an emotion a bee has. If a bee has any foreign object in a hive, as you know, that it doesn't like, it will take propolis and it will cover it, or it'll do, if it has a dead mouse or things like that. They don't put anything on that cell, nothing. Like it's as clean as a whistle all the times. They might build. It's funny. They'll build little combs around it or to the side or stuff, but nothing on it, right? So and they're coming and going, and so it's just natural for them. They're just doing their thing, and they're getting stronger. And we'll show you what it did for them. But it's the same for us. So if you sleep with it under your pillow, or if you sitting there, put it on a cushion under and just sit on it, it does amazing things over time, very slowly. It just changes things. But what it also does, and I sent it to a food lab just out of curiosity in Canada. And because we all get food from the grocery store that has different parasites and pathogens in it, like E. coli or Staphylococcus, right? So they tested about 6 or 7 different pathogens from food in raspberry and chicken. They put it on the PureWave Cell for 5 minutes, and it was neutralizing it up to 60 to 100%.
Wow.
So what it was doing, like sound canceling headphones where you can cancel a sound out with another thing, we're canceling a pathogen out and neutralizing it with a different frequency, because the frequency cannot exist in that frequency. So it doesn't kill it, it just neutralizes it so it doesn't go in your body. That's why people take so many things like antacids or Pepto-Bismol or whatever, because they've been mildly food poisoned just by what they're eating, right?
Yeah.
So what people in out in the world, what they call indigestion, a lot of times is food poisoning, things like that. And so we did that, and that became amazing. That started to happen. So then we knew, because that was definable. We could actually define it. We knew it's working. We knew it's working. It's not, hey, we think it is, or hey, this is good, or yes, we got a result. But that was something that we could actually define. And we have that in the video we can show. And that why we knew that. Now, people are complex because they're suffering from emotional disabilities as well as physical. And I'd say the emotion has a lot more to do with it, in my view, on causing stresses and sicknesses, especially with what we're subject to today, because people are high anxiety because it's coming at them 6 ways from Sunday, right? So that being the case, bees are not getting that. It's more physical for them because they follow their lines. And the same, but for us, we're subject to so much more. So when we're saying we're trying to fix something, well, really, like the PureWave Cell doesn't fix anything. All it does is allow the body to have a lot of that interference that's coming at it that's not allowing the body to fix itself. Because the only thing that can fix you is your body. It knows how to fix itself, but we constantly interfere with it all the time. So we're, through our emotions, through our circumstances, environment, we're constantly not letting it fix itself, right? We're constantly going at it. So it's kind of, I relate, it's kind of like for parents that know that when they have a 2-year-old child that goes into a temper tantrum, well, it's in that tantrum, you can't do anything, you can't communicate, you can't do anything, right? Soon as it runs out of gas, then you can go in and start to communicate. Well, it's like that higher force in our bodies. It's the same with us. We're under complete chaos, and until we calm down, it can't do anything. Right. So this is basically what we're doing, is we come in and let's start building up the cells and give them a chance. Because as it said, 10 billion cells in yours and my body will die today, and 10 billion more will come. Well, the new ones that are coming in, they'll only be subject to whatever we're doing. Now, if that happens in a day, how many in a month? How many in a year? So you give me a year with getting you changed out of environment, those cells only know that. That's all they know. The dead ones are gone. So that's how you'll recover. That's how you come back. That's how it works, right? And that's a fact. That's how we work. So same with the bees. We go out there, they're subject to all that. If we can get those larvae, the new queens, all of that moving, and get those cells working, well, you're going to find out what happened. And what we discovered is that those hives do so much better than the ones that are just regularly operating. So I'll kind of stop it there.
So should we watch this next video?
Welcome to the world of inventions for energy medicine. I'm Bee Broda. According to the Canadian Association of Professional Apiculturists, Canada lost almost 50% of their bee population in 2022. Researchers at the University of Waterloo feel insecticides are compromising the bees' immune system. Dr. Magda Havas, Professor Emerita at Trent University School of the Environment, believes magnetic fields also play an important role in the health and wellness of the honeybee population.
We did some research at Trent University where we were studying the effects of radiofrequency radiation on the bees. We had some beehives at a farm, and expose them to current household items that we have that emit wireless radiation. One of the things we noticed is that the bees started coming out of the hive very, very quickly.
You look at their behavior, they're all just quite happily, they're not running around, they're kind of very settled, they're fanning, they're keeping the place cool and protecting. As these ones are running up and down at the entrance. The sounds here is not normal.
Dr. Havas is participating in a long-term research study on the use of geomagnetic fields to enhance insect and human immune systems and negate the effects of environmental pollution that may be causing the collapse of the honeybee population. This research is based upon a geometric array of 12 high-intensity magnets that are encased inside a hard enclosure to create a PureWave cell. The opposing polarities of the magnets create a spiral vortex that emanate outwards in all directions. This spiral pattern can be observed with magnetic viewing film. Liquid ferrofluid placed in a dish on top of the PureWave cell shows the invisible, evenly spaced magnetic lines rising upwards. This is an internal view of the magnets. A PureWave cell can be used to control the growth of pathogens. The vortex suppresses bacterial infestation. Spores grown in a petri dish that were not exposed to the magnet shows a proliferation of fungal growth. A study has been completed at Pathogenia food laboratories to determine the efficiency to reduce pathogens in food. Brewer's yeast, E. coli, Staphylococcus, and Listeria were added to meat and fruit and then treated for 5 minutes on the magnetic disc. Ground chicken and raspberries were chosen for inoculation. This study demonstrates 3 forms of Listeria were not reduced in the chicken, but showed almost a 50% reduction in the raspberries. Surprisingly, 1 form of brewer's yeast grew 50% faster in the meat, while another was reduced a similar amount in the fruit. The various forms of E. coli were eliminated in the raspberries. And all forms of Staphylococcus have been significantly reduced. When you immerse food inside a PureWave, there are many examples of how it can prolong the shelf life. Here, cauliflower remains fresh after several days, while unexposed control samples show signs of food spoilage. Research on honey is carried out here.
The first year we had 10 magnets and we were quite happy with it. Last fall we ended up with 30 magnets in the 1 bee yard.
In this yard here, there's about 30 hives. This yard did not get the discs, and when I came in to unpack the hives, half the yard was dead, and the half that survived, there were barely any bees, and they were not looking good at all. And now in this yard, we wintered 30 hives in here. All 30 got the magnetic disc. When I unpacked it, all 30 were alive and overflowing with bees to the point where I had to split almost every hive in this yard. But it's swarming because they've run out of room. Like, it's just a super strong hive.
Dr. Havas feels that the magnets are improving the immune system of the honeybee as they move through the PureWave magnetic field while foraging for nectar in the farms and forest. Many beekeepers have great success with the magnets, not only having a healthy hive, but they have found an increase in the yield of honey. Education plays an important role with the company that produces the magnets. They organize workshops called 4RBees to teach a new generation of potential beekeepers how to plant wildflower seeds in open pastures to help support the health and wellness of our insect pollinators. For more information on how you can help save the bees, visit 4RBees.com.
It's just brilliant. And I just love the clear example of where you've got a yard or an apiary with 30 hives that have got the PureWave, and then you've got the other hives where the bees are failing, and we're seeing it's not just in Canada, it's all around the world. The bees are just collapsing. And, like you said, the bees are obviously accepting the PureWave. They're not trying to drag it out the hive. They're not covering it in propolis. They love it. So, this excites me so much. I do. I'm always very, and I'm sure you're the same, is that we'd much rather we had a cleaner environment and we didn't need such things. But how wonderful that there is something that we can use. And by seeing the impact on the bees, that they don't know what we're doing. You can't, there's no placebo with them. They're just thinking you've just put this thing in our hive. Whereas obviously with humans, you have a lot of skeptics. The whole idea of frequency and vibration is still quite new to many people, and yet it's also really ancient knowledge, isn't it?
Well, absolutely well said. But I will go back to where you started. Those 2 yards. Well, first of all, they're a third. That father and son are a third generation. So his grandfather too. So they're third generation beekeepers, commercial. Their livelihoods depend on it. They're not. It's not a hobby for them. Now, they were very hard to get to do it because it's their livelihood. It's their right. Plus, they're very skeptical. They've been doing it for 60 years. And so what we elected to do, those 2 yards are only a couple of miles apart. So those are in the same area too. It'd be different if, let's say, a yard was, I don't know, 50 miles away in a different environment, because there could be other reasons why it was declining. I wanted them in the same environment. So in other words, you couldn't say, well, those bees were subject to what those bees weren't. They were all subject to the same thing. So why was the dramatic change? It could only come down to something was different in that yard. They're feeding on the same thing. They're from the same bees, that kind of thing. So that's why it was profound for them, where they saw that difference. Plus, they got a lot more honey, which, hey, that's their livelihood. So now, on top of that, I got a huge, and I'll go back into what you were saying, I got a huge byproduct of it, is I went to them and said, well, look, those hives that have the PureWave Cell, I want the honey. I'll buy the honey from you, because they sell the honey. That's their business. But I said, unlike what you normally do, they would normally sell it. I think at the time they were selling it for $2 something a pound, like commercially to the thing. So I paid them $1 more fair value than they got from anybody else. So that now I'm like a hero to them, because it's like, right, like I'm coming and doing what they're doing anyway. So I bought the honey because I wanted that honey. And then what we did is we creamed the honey instead of leaving it liquid, so it won't crystallize, and we never have to heat it. So it was creamed honey. And then I have another technology that's the same as the PureWave Cell, only much more elaborate. It's in a machine that turns the magnets, and I can change frequencies as I wish because of the motion. And I subject the honey to that and then test it through electrography what the difference was. So we have this high grade of energized honey. Now, unfortunately, we only can sell it in Canada and the States, because in Australia or in different parts, or even in Europe, they have a problem. Like, it's a problem just shipping honey to customers. They do weird stuff. So on our site, when you go, people are confused from different countries because we don't have the honey on there. Now the PureWave Cell can go anywhere. There's no issue with that. People can buy that worldwide, and they do. We have people buying from 50 countries. But the honey, I'm just letting you know, and your audience know, if they go on and they're in a different country, they may not be able to get the honey. But which is a shame, because we sell so much of it. People buy it by the case, but that was a byproduct out of those healthy bees, is what I was getting to. And back to the health issue, what happened? I decided well, I'm going to go this route, but here's the irony. People are so intelligent, more than they know. They picked up on that and said, well, hey, wait a minute. Yeah, that's good for the bees. It's good for me. So it ended up going to people anyway, but with no promises. So it wasn't like, okay, you're selling to people and saying, hey, get the PureWave Cell and do this. It does all kinds of things. I mean, it's great for circulation, pain. It's great for pathogens in the gut health. All of that's there. But they picked up on it because of the bees, and then it took off. And so then it just took off. So we have thousands and thousands of customers with the PureWave Cell and all kinds of different things from what they do with their plants to what they do with their pets is unbelievable. And this is just coming to me. So, you stop me when I'm starting to go on ramble, but a wonderful gal from New Mexico, Savannah, called up, contacted us, and she does bird rescue, where she takes sparrows and roadrunners in the area that people send that have been, because they're affected by the 5G as well. So she contacted and said, would you be willing to send me some cells and see, I'll use that in the healing process of what I'm doing with the baby birds and all of that. And I said, I went, oh, absolutely. Like, listen, I would just love to know, what you're doing and all of that and support. I mean, there's nothing, we're doing the bees and you're doing the birds. So we'll just, so we did. And it was about 3 months later. And then she sent us these amazing pictures, which we can do a whole show on that, with the baby birds on the PureWave Cell and what it was speeding up and doing that. And then the releasings and all that. So now it's the birds and the bees, right? So it's just, right. It's because, again, it's all the same thing. There's no surprise. And then now we support her with some of the revenues back into what she's doing, because she has no financial support. She just does it all on her own. Then she has this little center. But seeing these birds just it's unbelievable, really. And they come in injured or they come in sick, and then what she's doing. So that was a byproduct of just by doing what you're doing, right? Oh, that's great. Lisa's brought it up. So there's the little birds that she and all she did was put the PureWave Cell in where she was doing the healing and having them going, and then sometimes on it. And that's all she was doing. But the results she was getting was way faster and well elevated from what she was normally doing. So there was an injured roadrunner there, had an injured leg. So and then we have an end result of where it's being released. Right. So but great for cats and dogs will hang around it. Sometimes they steal it from their owners, and they'll they put it in their own bed. This is the kind of stuff that we get that is there's a really little baby bird there. So this is the kind of thing that the PureWave Cell will do because of what we talked about, right?
Wow, that's amazing. Now, you did touch on 5G, which, as we both know, is very controversial, but also becoming really widespread. And it is very telling that the birds, as well as the bees, are being affected. So it would be crazy to think that humans weren't being affected. Are you able to find a way to explain to humans why the waves of 5G, or what makes some waves not beneficial to health and other waves more beneficial? Is it this sacred geometry?
No. Okay, so that's a great question. So what it is, and I can answer that because of my background, what it is those frequency lines, or that math configurations of what 5G or Wi-Fi, that we use, what you and I are doing right now, communicating on Zoom. Those frequencies are designed in technology. They work really well. They're structured for the movement of light and configuration to move for sound. That's why we can do what we're doing, you and I are doing right now, or our cell phones, and they work really well. Now, when you start talking 4 or 5Gs, it just means you're elevating or you're escalating the configurations of how fast you want to move that. So originally, when they were talking about moving information around, voice, things, stuff like that, it was supposed to be fiber optics. Fiber optics doesn't have the symptom of bad frequencies, it's clean. Like when I was in my building, all the light was fiber optics. But what they did is it was harder to put the fiber optics in, so they went with the towers. It was supposed to be a temporary thing while they got the fiber optics, and they went, whoa, and they went that way. But a lot of times now, you're going to see companies, they're coming back to fiber optics because without saying anything, they know there's a problem, right? So they're a chaotic frequency, just like, but they work incredibly well for communications. But they're not good for us. The cells don't like it. That's the difference. They do their job, but the byproduct is not good for living organisms. That's, it's just not. It doesn't feed that. It's a problem. It's a chaotic frequency, and there's lots of them that you can run it. Hey, look, your microwaves and all kinds of things, right? So we use these technologies because they're so useful to us, which they are. And let's be honest, but they're not health-wise good for us to have too much of it or to be so bombarded when you live in cities, because it's like everything. It's out of balance. It's gone to another level, And so in nature, it's done the same thing because they keep bringing more and more of it in, and more satellites, and then more of this, and so it's just out of balance. It's like the saying "koyana skasi," which was the Hopi word for life out of balance, right? We've sent technology to us that is useful, but it's made us out of balance. That's basically the best. And out of balance is where health is out of balance, right? So without belaboring that, that's a fact. We're just out of balance. So now we need to bring things in that help us with that out of balance. Now the geometry, when we talk about math, and there's just geometry that bring the balance back in because the cells do like it. That's the difference. Is that now? How do we know that? Because we all started out that way. Like when we do cell division and say, well, so it could go this way, that way, but no, it goes into that geometry for a reason, right? That literally is the language or communication to the cells. Now, if I showed you a bird cell, a frog, or us, it's all the same. The first 5 splits, you wouldn't know what you're looking at. That could be a frog, that could be a bee, or it could be you and me. It all looks the same. It all exactly, and then it goes into its DNA and structure and goes out from there. So that's when you know that everything is coming from there. Now, then how do you replicate it? How do you put your shapings and get those cells responding to it? Now, the magnets have the force that the magnets distribute it, right? Because it has, what is a magnet? It's an earth frequency that's bonded. That's why it's so magical when you see what magnets can do. It's like invisible, right? They're doing this, and their polarities, but you can't dispute it. If you didn't see it, you'd go, hey, we don't believe it. But when you see it, then you go, wow, So it's like a bonding agent. It's like it allows me to glue. It allows you to hold a frequency and glue it, which is really an amazing thing that magnets allow you to do. So that is where this came about, because I was just looking to hold the frequency to affect the cells constantly. So we live now in a world of chemistry. That's why we have pharmaceuticals, right? That's all chemical. Now, they do their job for the symptoms, but they don't do the job for the cause. That's why we have so many side effects, because the body doesn't relate to chemicals. Chemicals isn't natural. It will cause things. A chemical can poison you. It can kill pain. It can do things, but that's chemistry. The world we're moving into, and that we must move into, is physics. We have to heal with physics, not chemistry. That's the battle that's going on right now, because chemistry is very, very profitable, right? It's very profitable, where frequency can be like, for example, this cell will last 20 years and just does what it does. So there's nothing more to buy. There's nothing more to do or replace. That's not really a good business model. That's not really right. So chemistry, taking a pill daily and whatever and doing those, that works, right? So those are the battles that go on, but we're rapidly, and this I'll leave it at this. Do you remember, it's not long ago, like when I was a kid, that they used to do what was called exploratory surgery?
Yeah.
So they used to cut you open to find out what was wrong with you. That's what they used to do. So now what do? Well, to diagnose, what do they use? They use frequency medicine, MRIs, CAT scans. They don't do that anymore. They don't put things in to figure out what's wrong. But when they go to treat, what do? Right back to chemistry. So
Mm.
they diagnose with physics, but they treat with chemistry, right? So now we got to bridge those two. You got to diagnose with frequency and you got to treat with frequency. So that is coming. That's coming, right? And that's why you have, PEMF mats, pulse electric magnetic mats, earth based. That's why you've got all the different different instruments you got. That's why we're working with these. That's why we can go out in nature, because you don't need any power source or plug it in. So we're in the world of change now. It's just that there's always a battle with change, because some people don't like it when we're doing change, because it interferes with something they're doing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where
Humans,
battles happen.
it is, and you've put that so well. I really love that, and that moving from chemistry into physics, and there will be a long transition, but it changes by example, doesn't it, and by people's experience. And
That's right.
if you've got a choice of having an MRI or just having them slice you open and dig around a bit, I know which one most people would choose. Or if you could stand barefoot, just for a few hours or a few minutes every day, that's a good experiment to just see if grounding does have an impact. Now, I want to go back to the honey, because I'm a honey sommelier, and there's a group of honey sommeliers who, again, we are challenging the way of analyzing honey from chemical more to sensory analysis. And so for those who don't understand, a creamed honey, so when you harvest a honey, it will be quite liquid, and depending on the floral source will depend how quickly it will crystallize, but just about every honey will crystallize. And it's just where the movement of the molecules will form crystals around any particles in the honey. So if you've got any pollen. Now, if you cream the honey, which is basically whisking it, and you can have this big machine that's a bit like a paint mixer that will just sort of rotate the honey, it agitates everything to a state that it then is stabilized. So it's not going to crystallize any harder, and it won't go back to being runny. And when you go into, I won't even say a supermarket, because most supermarkets don't even sell honey. But if you were to buy a runny honey and you put it in your cupboard and then you get it out and it's gone hard, you can soften it again by heating it. So you can, just stand it in hot water. So what's lovely about a creamed honey is you don't have to do any of that. It stays the same. But then you are charging it with these magnets. So that is fascinating. And as a sensory analyst, it's a real shame I'm in England, but I'm going to have to connect you with one of the world's top honey sensory analysts, who's actually in New York, or New York State. And it would be really interesting for her to taste the two honeys. Oh, well, actually three honeys. You want the honey from the yard without the magnets, then the honey from the yard with the magnets, and then the honey that you've put through your machines, and just see if you can taste or detect any difference. And I'm not disputing that the body would experience a difference, but it would just be so interesting to see if there are other markers that are picked up on this honey. But it's just, it is phenomenal. And I'll share with you actually a little experiment I've done. I've been really interested in Masuro Moto's work, who is the Japanese scientist that was crystallizing water. And then from his work, Veda Austin in New Zealand, she started photographing water that had been frozen for about 10 minutes. And I put some spring water in a little Petri dish and froze it to see what the crystals would like, without any kind of impact, without writing anything, thinking anything, just looking at plain water. Then I put the spring water in my observation hive in this room. I'm in my bee spa now, and I've got an observation hive next to me. And I left the water in there for 24 hours. And then when I took it out, I poured out a bit of water in a new Petri dish and froze it for 10 minutes. And it was amazing because a bee image appeared. And this is the impact of vibration and frequency. So the frequency of the bees being in that energy field of the bees was enough to change the crystalline structure of the water. So, you know, the bees in themselves are so powerful, and like you're saying, they're showing us the impact of frequency and vibration. Right. and how important it is. Now, I think you've got a little video about the honey, haven't you? Shall I play that?
I do, if you want, because what'll be great about that is we actually show the instrument that we treat it with and what effect that has on it. So that that might be great as to where we conclude on showing what that's done.
Brilliant.
If you are a honey connoisseur, you'll want to experience PureWave energized honey. It comes from the open pastures of the Grey Highlands, located in southern Ontario, Canada. The unique blend of nectar from wildflowers are a favorite for honeybees that pollinate open fields, farms, and forests within the Greater Golden Horseshoe Greenbelt. These bees produce one of the finest honeycombs in the world and are now under great stress. Pesticides are weakening the bee's immune system. It contributes to the growth of deadly pathogens. But there's a solution to that problem. This PureWave Cell. It generates a quantum force field of spiral magnetic energy. It has been scientifically proven to deactivate pathogens. When placed inside a beehive, apiaries report an abundance of honey and healthy bees that survive Canada's frigid winters. The honey that comes from PureWave hives is raw, creamed, unpasteurized, and then energized using a special patented quantum technology. PureWave honey is a premium private labeled product packaged in a licensed facility that meets FDA and Canadian Food Inspection Agency regulations. It is then shipped to warehouses in Canada and the USA for further processing using the chrysalis energizer. The honey is bathed in the special frequencies originating from rotating neodymium magnets. The chrysalis energizer is manufactured here near Toronto, Canada. This is where the secret ingredient of a unique patented quantum technology was developed and brought to reality. It was originally developed as a Class 1 medical device.
What we're really dealing with here is magnetism into a geometric form and then putting motion to it. So what we have in the instrument is a very specifically cut neodymium magnets, very powerful, set into a sacred geometry shape, 12 of them inside. Then we put this into a situation into 3D. So then we place it where there's 5 of these placed in sequence in here.
Magnetic viewing film displays the pattern of the magnets that pulse the magnetic field as it rotates inside the 3 cylinders. The field intensity increases proportionally with the frequency that is selected. Years of research went into testing the device to determine the ideal frequencies and duration of exposure to fully saturate the honey. A magnetic probe attached to an oscilloscope shows the dominant frequency and the unique shape of the quantum wave. Electrography can be used to visualize the effect of the rotating magnetic field. A vial of honey is placed on the energizer. The corona discharge shows the amount of electrical conductivity of the raw honey. After energization, the entire content of the vial has become more conductive to electron flow. The electrographic image of the honey is used on the logo.
We wanted to then draw from what we've configured into the instrument and put it into a standalone unit And this is what we use to go in the beehives.
A PureWave cell will emit a corresponding frequency and magnetic field if you rotate it. If you move the cell over your body, it will absorb your bioelectric field. The meter shows over 2,000 volts per meter emanating from inside the cell. Both the PureWave cell and the honey are sold directly to the consumer online. And you will find their products in stores that feature apiary products too. They are manufactured by 4RBees, a company that provides a solution to beekeepers that want to maintain healthy, disease-free hives. Connoisseurs all over the world appreciate their energized nectar from nature.
Oh,
If you are a honey connoisseur,
oh.
want to experience PureWave and
I can't stop it from coming back. That is just, it's blowing my mind on so many levels. When I think that the ancients, you've talked about the ancient peoples and ancient civilizations and how honey would be used as a preservative. It would be used to preserve herbs, to preserve minerals, to preserve bodies, and you are in fact capturing this amazing energy. So if people, if they don't have the budget to go for one of the PureWave cells, they can just be consuming the honey and still getting that benefit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. You need to have one of these machines, all around the world, wherever you've got these apiaries. I mean, it's
something that can happen again, because it's my focus has changed. Like, so as a company, you have focuses, as we say. So my focus was not to build an empire out where, like where I'm putting technologies and selling technology. My focus is on the mission. So my focus is, and it's really hard for some people that are my partners and everything to understand, is that we never can lose focus of the mission, which is to get in hundreds of thousands of hives at no charge from what the public is supporting and making a difference out there across the whole planet. Because we'll bring up a map for you after this and show you where we are with beekeepers, and we're only getting started. So the mission, maybe if I was in my 30s or something, instead of heading to my 70s, I could be in a different model. But I just want to change the dynamics of the planet, is the way that the job's getting done, and the beekeepers are being supported. And I want, just tens of thousands of beekeepers to be able to get this financial support. And so that's why. So when people are buying our honey and doing all of that, they're doing way more than that. They're helping themselves. But what they're also doing is they're changing the planet, because this is where we are now. We're in Hawaii. We're in Australia. We're through Canada and the States. We're also in Africa now, where they're actually using it for supporting schools and foods and things. Like, it goes beyond, now they can dynamically have the money and resources to do that and getting the content. So we're just getting started. We've got 3 years. We hope that map is just insane in the next number of years. And it's not just the PureWave cell. I must say that helps, but we also want to be providing the food sources and seedings in areas. So we want the money for that. We also want to provide queens back for them where they don't have to buy them. We already do that, where we'll go and we just cut a check for money for them doing queens and bring in. The more we can support the bee people and the smaller ones where they don't financially have to buy these things, the more they'll expand. And then now people are starting to talk leaving land to it, freezing up land, doing things. So that's how we can make a real difference.
Oh, and that's an incredible difference. And the bee world, the bee community, we do all know each other. There's these big global conferences, and we've all just been in Copenhagen in September for Apimondia. And it's just amazing, because you've got the scientists, you've got the beekeepers, you've got the honey sommeliers. Everybody comes together, all sharing what they're learning. And, it is like the bees. We're sharing the wisdom. You put a drop of knowledge into somewhere in the bee world and it spreads and it shares globally, because the bees, they are everywhere, and they are showing us what's happening with our environment. And this is amazing. And what I love about what you're doing is it's not saying that these technologies that are causing harm have all got to go and we've got to go back to the dark ages and, heating, light with candles. It's like, no, let's find a way of balance. Let's balance.
That's right.
More. Yeah.
Everything, Paula, is about balance. That's why we're in such conflict now, is because people have lost the plot on balance. It's got, everybody's going, no, it's got to be this way and it's extreme, or it's got to be this way and extreme. This world has never worked well on extremes. What it is it's looking for balance, right? Always one side coming to the other, one side accommodating the other, one side, making a concession. It's just like a marriage. When a marriage comes together, concessions have to be made, right? So this is how it needs to work. But what I wanted to do, because to break through, was how can beekeepers have a problem with us when all we want to do is financially support, right? Now, the fact that I have a technology, but I'm not looking to build a company and sell that technology to beekeepers. So that's off the table. I'm looking to give them that plus a lot more. So that's a different scenario, as well as we now have a forum once a month on Zoom call where all the beekeepers that we have come together and share what's going on, because they all have different circumstances and problems in their areas. Well, once that gets to 10,000 beekeepers, we can start saying, well, okay, we got to support. Let's say something's going on in Texas or in England or something. So let's get a support into there because there's a particular problem that's going on there, but we'll have the resources to do that. Right. So that you start going through governments and stuff. It might take 2 years before you get some kind of grant or whatever. But once we have an incredible, which I'm looking for next year, through a major campaign going out and raising major amounts of money, is that we can go to an area. Let's say you were saying to me, Brent, there's a bit of a problem over here. Great. We're going to dedicate going in there with the resources and money and stuff to make a difference into there. Right. So that's really what 4RBees is really about getting to the point where it's a resource for beekeepers financially. Yeah.
This is amazing. And beekeepers are being pinched from all angles, with honey fraud, with, the pollination, there's just it is so difficult. And I don't think any beekeepers are subsidized by their governments. It's the one type of husbandry or animal husbandry or farming where you really do have to be commercial, and yet you've got everything going against you. So it is just amazing. It really is 4RBees. Now, you've shared what your mission is, but what is your dream? So with all the beekeepers coming to you, with you having enough people and resources that can then fund the beekeepers for free, where would you see, if we're to have a conversation, well, let's say a year, but then in 5 years, how would the world look to you?
Well, so as you know, these things are done in steps. As we start to formulate the army, because that's basically what I call it. And there's an interesting saying that says when a really, really great cause or idea and time has come, all the armies in the world can't stop it, right? So what happens is, as we build that, now we branch into other pollinators, monarch butterflies, other things start to spread out. We start to freeze up lands that people are leaving now to this locking in this being looked. We start to change the dynamics of the queens, how they're being, we start to make changes to where it's environment. It's not just about what the bees are doing, but it's crossing, of course, the bees cross into all the environments that we can start making changes. Now, as we have that power, we can start changing where the weird environment frequencies are going on, that they can massage and start to make changes that still benefit them and benefit what's going on. But all of this comes from being organized and balanced and working with everything. So that's where I'd like to see it, go. And I have a feeling it will be way beyond me. Like, I won't be around to see where it ultimately goes. Down the road, where I'd like it to go, I may not be. I may not make it there just because of the time it takes to do it, but that's okay. I mean, that's, it's something that I know is moving in the right direction.
Yeah, you're literally sowing seeds. I know you're sending out wildflower seeds as well, but like the seeds for a tree, you're sowing those seeds, planting the seeds so that your great grandchildren can sit in the shade, surrounded by birds and bees,
Yeah.
loving it. And you'll be in charge. You'll be leading it in spirit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And here's what's exciting. When you said about sending out seeds, we don't send out seeds, and I'll tell you why. Every area is different. You can't just send seeds to. So what we do, it's even easier. Let's say you had an area where you said, Brent, I really want to get the food sources in this area, and we got a group. We're saying, get your group together. We'll provide the money for those seeds, but you need to get your localized seeds, right? Because they got to stay to the areas they're in, get high quality, do it, because all that is money. That's just a financial thing. We already do it in Texas, so they can have, which is fun. They and Groove, like you saw, an entire groups of people. And believe me, if you ask people to come out and help us seed for the bees, you will have endless people, like volunteers. Then you get them out there, they do the search, they have a fun time, all the seeds, and they go seeding. They go seeding and get to all those areas like humans can do. And then we just provide the money for it. So that's the way we do that. Same as Queens is, so people are getting localized. They're picking out where we want to go, what they want to buy. They get them integrate, and then we'll pay for those. So it's the financial support in those cases, right? So, and so when beekeepers come on with us, we vet them for just wanting them to know that they know what they're doing with that, but also that they have the right mindset. The right mindset is, you can give the greatest technology in the world to someone with a negative mindset. It's not going to work. Nothing works for them, right? So the thing is that when we have these amazing beekeepers that we're taking on, but they already believe that it's time for change, and the magnetics and the frequencies and stuff. So guess what results they always have? Fantastic results. Because they're in line with the bees. They already want it to work. How can something work when you don't want it to work, or you're skeptical of it, right? So,
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the way we do it, and it's worked like a charm, to go and, but it's more than just the technology. It's the support to financially help them, and we look to grow that. Like with Jacob in Kenya, when we give it to him, he finally got honey like he never got before. And he used the sale of that honey for some girls' schools and things like that. So it will have a chain reaction into villages. It'll have chain reactions into other financial support. So this is the chain reaction, right? Or the domino.
And when you spoke it right at the beginning, and you were saying about health and how the mind has such an important aspect to that, and with my 7 years of ill health, it was that intention and belief that it wasn't going to last forever. Despite what all the experts were telling me, I knew that I had to recover. And what I'm also seeing as well with you is, we see things that can happen as a disaster. So when we go back to 2008, and your banking world was changing, and that could well have been very traumatic, and a lot of people would have thought that's the end of everything, because that whole system collapsed. And yet, what a gift for humanity that you had the right intention with the tools you had. You put in this position where the old model was no longer working, but it gave you time, it gave you the money to then absolutely create dramatic impact worldwide. And that's, the greatest tragedy can often be the greatest gift, can't it?
Well, nicely said. But what you're saying, when people talk about, geez, changing the world, and you look at all the people in our past that have made a change in the world, it always starts with that first step. It doesn't start with saying, I'm going to go change the world. It starts with saying, I want to get a result, or I want to do this, and thereby it changes the world, right? It really starts out of being somewhat what people would consider isolated and selfish, and then turns into something that's like for everybody, right? Because you know, in my case, I was looking for, well, in my case, what it was is I didn't want to live this life my whole life. And when I was passing away, I could say to myself, I lived this life. I had wonderful things. I ate all kinds of food and I had love, but I don't even know what I was in. I don't even know how it worked. I went through this whole life and I don't even know what it was. It was just something I went through. Well, that was unacceptable for me. I knew that there was common denominators, how this thing works. Now, some people can call that religious, or they're looking for whatever, but it's something that you can say, hey, I know that in nature this is what's going on, and that's what drove me. I wanted that, but what came out of it was the bees and things. So that was not the intent to begin with. So that's how the world changes, is you and to have the the commitment that you don't stop. So, because there's all kinds of obstacles, they keep coming at you, they get worse, they come at you. I couldn't even go into all the obstacles that were crazy, but you will not stop, because what you're looking for is too important to you. Yeah.
It's a project that's bigger than you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you know something, Paula? We'll do more for our animals and other people than we'd ever do for ourselves. Right? If
Yeah.
I was doing stuff for myself, I'd be hard pressed to go through all the obstacles. But if it's for family or life or things or pets, that's when you'll rise up and do way more for that than you ever would for yourself.
Oh, so true. So true. So I know that a lot of beekeepers will be listening to this and they'll be like, oh, how do we get our hands on this? So how do you want beekeepers to contact you? And, what's the next step?
We do have on our website, there's an app, and we can give you more. There's an application area where they go to, and they just say, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm Paula, I'm a beekeeper, and, I really like to, and then they contact us. And then what we do is we have a sign up form and things like, because we have so much allocated, so many cells allocated based on how much is coming in. So we have about, 50 beekeepers waiting coming this spring and then as we get more and more of what this support's coming in, we do more and more. So we accept those beekeepers, then we get ready to send them cells and get ready to work with them based on that process. So they'll just do an application, and then we have people that just specialize in that to communicate with them and get them set up, and then get them in the form, get them all set up. And all we require back from beekeepers is the content. That's all we require. So if we give it to you, we just want to make sure that you show it going in, you're showing what's going on, you talk to us about what's happening or not happening. That's what we want. That's all we require, back for getting it, which they're happy to do anyway, because they're involved in what they're doing. So back to your question, they just have to go to our site, and there's an application process there that they can look up, and then they contact us and we get back and set them up.
Brilliant. And if people don't want to wait to have a free one, they can also just buy one, can't they?
Well, we have a super discount for beekeepers that we've elected to, that we're going to work with. So, because some will purchase them at a special beekeeper rate to get them going, and then we give them other ones as we later too. So there's that going on if they don't want to wait until the allocation. So yes, they can do that, and that's all done through. It's not done through the shop site. That's done through the beekeeper content of our person that's handling that. Yeah. So they'll set all that up for them.
No, that's wonderful. And we'll put all the links in the show notes. So anybody watching this or listening to it, just go to the show notes and you'll have that, or you can reach out to me or to Brent on 4RBees. And yeah, I mean, I can't wait to get involved, because it's exactly in alignment with what I believe with the bees. I can't wait to be experimenting with the hives. And I know my bees here in the bee spa, for people to come and be healed with the bees or have healing sessions with the bees that are in turn being supported. So as they give all the great positive vibes and positive frequencies to heal people sat here, the bees are being renewed as well. This is just joy to my heart what you're doing, and I'm so grateful to have come across you and for us to connect. It's just brilliant, and I look forward to seeing how 4RBees really is going to transform the world. So well done. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and so great to meet you, because again, as you're saying, you're finding us, we're also finding you, and this is what's important, because without you, how do we get this done? Like it's we're here to support what you're doing and then broaden it out. And there'll be many things that we'll be talking, Paul, down the road, that this will trigger other things that we aren't even thinking about right now. I can tell you that for sure. And that's fun. That's what's exciting.
It is. Thank you so much. And I just can't wait to hear what people feel when they've listened to this, because it is just blowing my mind. And as you said, there's so many new ideas, there's so many people I know that we can connect each other with. It's really exciting. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And to all of you listening, thank you very much. I am sure you will have enjoyed this, and comment, send me messages, let me know what you think. And if you start having PureWaves in your hives, then let us know how you find the results. So until next time, let's all keep creating a buzz about health.